York City Fireside Chat. It's going to be focused on blockchain and media. My name is David Whiting from ACQUCHAT, and we're here in Brooklyn, and we're talking about the aspects of blockchain, where it's going and where it's been. So I'm here with my guests, and my first guest is Madison, and I'm going to have each one of my guests talk a little about themselves and what they're doing in blockchain.
Thank you. My name is Madison Campbell, formerly from the VC world. I was in a fund that managed around $40 million. We invested in a couple ICOs, but mostly our portfolio was in real estate tech. And then basically after that, I went and started my own company called Yanu, which does outsourcing to Nigeria, but overall Africa. It's essentially trying to build up jobs in Africa and increase African development and decrease the unemployment there. Essentially, it came out of a lot of discussions we had with not only our portfolio members that were in blockchain, but also portfolio members that were out of blockchain with the rising technological charges and how much software engineers were expecting. So I hope to give some insight on both the technology side of things as well as the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison and David. My name is Sachin. I have started a couple of companies. Right now I'm currently working in the travel industry and blockchain, and we have built a settlement engine. I have a survive and thrive venture fund. I have a survive and thrive event for entrepreneurs. I also help entrepreneurs to get into their technology, understanding the baseline of technology and how it will impact the future. Today, I think I'll give the insight of what happened in 2018 and how that can be avoided and how we can make people more aware of what the technology is and what the subjective emotions right now going right into the entire cryptocurrency crash. Thank you, David.
Thanks, guys. My name is Tatiana Morose. I'm here as a singer-songwriter, but also an entrepreneur in the crypto space. I came in as an activist, very interested in 2012 to use Bitcoin to help bring better opportunities to people around the world. And since then, I've created the world's first artist cryptocurrency, Tatiana Coin, in 2014 using Counterparty. And I have a company called Crypto Media Hub. We do PR and marketing for the crypto space. I also have a podcast called The Tatiana Show, and a few other things in development, including a music platform. And to speak to some of the more creative aspects of the collision between art and technology, and happy to weigh in on the ups and downs of the crypto world as well.
Hi, my name is Monica Profit. I am the CEO and founder of Rise Housing. We're securitizing real estate. This is my fifth company, and my last one was actually in the arts and culture space, pre-blockchain. So I sort of made a big pivot from real estate investment personally and the creation of arts and culture, artist serving platforms as well. I had an artist residency program in New Mexico based in some of one of my real estate holdings, as well as an exhibitions program that was global, taking emerging artists to worldwide art fairs that they couldn't get into. So before blockchain really came into the art space, I decided to pivot from that, sell that company, and diversify straight into more real estate specific technology. So that's the beginning of Rise Housing. I'm also the author of Blockchain 101, a simple guide so that my family can finally know what I do. Because my cousins kept asking me, what is this blockchain thing? And I thought we need really simple ways to help people understand the new internet of value. And so I wanted to bridge that gap. My mother recently read the book and finally now knows what I spend my time doing. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much to all of you. So what we're doing right now, we're going to talk about 2018. It's been a crazy year in crypto and blockchain. A lot of things have been going on. The beginning of the year started off really hot. A lot of ICOs were coming out, and they were making a lot of money, continuing from 2017, that pace. But then it seemed to be something happened in the middle of this summer, and it slowed down. There's a lot of reasons that could be the case. So we'll go into a little bit of what your thoughts are. I'll give a little bit of what my opinions are also. I think maybe some of it's a little bit of SEC, a little bit of the wariness of companies who just took a lot of money in 2017, and there was a lot of scams, and a lot of people took a lot of money. And then people wised up, some institutions and some of the other people came into the space and started doing a little bit more due diligence, and I think things slowed down. That's my own personal opinion, but I'll let you speak.
So I think a lot of you guys will agree on this too. You know, like anything, whether you're in strict VC or you're investing in blockchain, you're making a risk, especially when it's an IP play, right? When it's not something tangible, you're always making a risk. And funds themselves, or individual investors, are always looking for a different quick scheme, right? Like since the creation of time, cavemen, we're probably like, oh, I'll sell you this rock and it'll be great and it'll be so much better, right? Like, and trying to get their rock selling business up. And so, we're seeing ICOs, investors, and analysts, young millennials in funds that be like, we gotta get into this or we're going to lose out. We gotta push our money into this. We have to get on like the right side of innovation. And obviously a lot of that hype, sometimes has negative results. We really, really pushed, and sometimes a lot of individual investors didn't quite do their due diligence. They saw like, oh, I'm able to up and down, I'm able to get a really quick return. Why wouldn't I do this, right? And then, a lot of people, and you would see this in the VC world too, the founders didn't have the capabilities. There was runway valuation. You're stuck with a lot of money. Blockchain developers are really, really expensive. How are we supposed to pay them and pay an entire management staff and make up all this money? We can see it in any world. And it was just happening much more often in the ICO world because of the insane amount of money that was, traveling around. Obviously the SEC, has created a little bit more stability, I think, on the long term. And we're, going to talk about SEOs as a way of, getting that tangible asset back to your investment. But overall, I think it was just one of those things that is a huge, big hype. There was a huge, big amount of interest towards it, and when you have that much, it hits a bubble, and then you kind of have to get back, from that bubble.
Thank you. It's a great perspective. I have a little different take. If you look at how the whole scamming process, or people are saying, it started with fear of missing out, obviously. And the biggest thing people could do it is use a blockchain and claim and then start selling ICOs again. The company who made it possible for everyone to do ICO was Ethereum. They made it. They built the entire infrastructure, which is so functionally usable and easy for all the other players to come in and claim blockchain space. And then they started working on it. So the whole thing got escalated. And I again go back, if you look at the history, Ethereum has given us a huge, amazing potential platform to really go and ICO and create your own coins. But I think they shouldn't have given that access to a lot of people, because that became the disadvantage of Ethereum now. And they haven't cleaned it up. They're the one who's owning the responsibility. The currency was somewhere around $1,200 a year ago, and now they're at $90. It's that sort of scam being pulled out by using their platform. So that's one theory right there. Second, I think Bitcoin and blockchain came into existence with a whole new purpose of giving the new future of currency, a digital currency. But Ethereum came up with another brilliant idea of providing a smart contract which are tied to those digital currencies. What people took, this is an amazing technology, and people tried to apply a wrong solution to the wrong problem, or right solution to the wrong problem. It's completely never. I could see a lot of people are talking about healthcare and blockchain, and I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do with it? It only solves the supply chain problem. It doesn't solve it. So every person I've met in the last 16 months or 18 months who have no clue what the technology does, but they started claiming their own spot in the industry, and that goes with the investors, that goes with the fund managers, that goes with everywhere out there.
So, can you rephrase the question?
Yeah, well, basically, what do you think from 2017, from the end of 2017 to the beginning of 2018? There was a lot of growth, there was a lot of coins, there was a lot of...
Well, I think there's still a lot of...
And then it slowed down. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that there's still a lot of interest in the space. I mean, the price was due for a correction. Anytime it's going to spike like that, it's going to do that. But on a personal level, I'm seeing a ton of interest in the space. The conferences are very well attended. There's a lot of institutional interest. I think it's unfortunate to see some innovation driven outside of the US. I'm a big fan of the ICO. I think that there were some scams, but I mean, the casino is a scam. Doesn't mean that people don't like to go to the casino. It's unfortunate that it sort of gets a bad rap, and now we're seeing a lot of interest in having government regulation. From a certain practical perspective, you need a regulatory framework in order to innovate in this country. From a innovation-loving perspective, that doesn't necessarily help. You know, just trying to do a project around music, having regulations in place has made it quite difficult. So, I mean, even though the price is down, I think the industry is moving. I don't know a single person that thinks in the long term that it's not going to grow. So when people look at the space, yeah, maybe the price went down, and it is unfortunate. And I would actually probably attribute the continuing tumbling because there's a bunch of degenerate gamblers called hodlers in the business that didn't properly assign their funding. But in the long term, I think it's all good stuff. And people need to learn these hard lessons, including the hodlers.
Yeah, and you have to weed out all the bad actors. So those bad actors are getting out, and now the institutions are coming in.
Well, I'm sorry, I wanted to say one other thing. With the institutions coming in, I don't always think that that's a good thing. I think a lot of times what I found frustrating as an old school crypto person is a lot of people that are very good in their fields that come into crypto for 3 to 6 months, and just because they were hot shots in their field, they think that now, because they read a couple paragraphs about blockchain, they know everything, and that's really detrimental. It kind of kills the vibe a little bit for the innovators as well. So, mixed bag.
I agree 100%. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of the ICO as just a blanket statement. I understand, you know, as you were saying, there's a lot of scams out there, and there was so much sort of it's not well-intended action. Not even, you know, if it was bad action, or like they didn't even mean to be doing good action. They weren't even out to own the company. I can think of specific human beings off the top of my head that now are holding, you know, tens of millions of dollars. They have no idea how to build the company that they said they were going to build. And there are a lot of people in South Korea specifically that are just like, whoops, we bought a token for a thing. I don't know what's gonna, you know, and that's a scam. That's definitely not well-intended action in the market. And there should be consequences to that to some degree, but also there is a funny balance there because with too much preemptive engagement from a regulatory standpoint, you can end up squashing innovation. So it is tough. At the same time, I think that we all have a chance now to really drive more conversation around what regulations should be, what the right protections for individual investors should look like. I mean, we look at the environment in which a lot of the protections that we currently have in the United States came out of the wake of the Great Depression, and for really good reason. That was happening at the same time as the New Deal. There was infrastructure trying to get people back to work. We had a huge shaking of our economy, all the way down to the individual investor, and we found that if you can't tolerate risk, our economy actually needs you a lot more than much to admit it. So if there's going to be risk to be taken, it has to be by someone who's not going to literally be pulling their belt buckle tighter. And that was a really, I mean, it's a hard time in our country. At the end of our life to remember it, but let's not forget where this came from. So now that we have the chance to be determining a new internet of value in these new economies, both micro and macro economies, I think it's time we take a chance, take the opportunity to take what was the best of that protectivism and the intention behind that, and just rework it so that we can get the best out of it but leave the rest behind. There are a lot of opportunities for individual investors, but I love the ICO for that opportunity. And it is unfortunate that as an innovator we have to go overseas to raise money. That is not the American way that I think was happening in these
disconnect also. And when you look at the innovators, and the people who are innovators, and the creative people, and they really have the minds, and they really know what they want to do with the technology, that gap is between the people who have the money, and they're trying to get the money from the people, trying to get the people with the capital to understand what they're doing. Now, they did come up with the mechanism, like they talk about Ethereum and the coins, and that mechanism was there, and that's great. But then some people took advantage of that system, and now I think the United States is a little bit behind, like you said, with the regulations. Everyone is going to Malta, and everyone's going to all the different countries around the world, and we're getting left back. So with this innovation that's coming, and between the innovation and the investors, what do you think we can really move forward in 2019?
I mean, I think it's important to go back and look at companies, just like a random example, Theranos, right? Look at Theranos, okay? Theranos, I don't really think they made any harm, like they were trying to make it happen. They got tons of money, they got tons of potential contracts, and there was a lot of shoddy business practices going on, but essentially they didn't have the innovation behind it. They had this incredible runway valuation, right? So, to regulators, I want to say, like, this happens in, a highly regulated market as well as energy, right? What happened with Theranos in Silicon Valley with some of the biggest players involved, Reid Hoffman, tons of big investors involved in Theranos, then of course it's going to happen in this industry. We shouldn't be treating them like, every cryptocurrency, every blockchain invention is a scam. I mean, we have what's happening in the regular market. So pretty much every market, right? And so I think it's more or less telling the regulators, like, these are some examples of what is happening normally, and we're going to see this happen there. There's scammers in every single industry. It's just because there's a few scammers here and a few scammers there, we're not going to shut, regular VC funding down. So why should we, shut this space? You know what I mean?
Well, definitely I agree with all of you in that terms. But I have this point of view, I'm looking at it. Technology takes its own pace to catch up with the solutions, deliver you the product, and PR and the media starts making a subjective opinion of what it is going to be for tomorrow. As soon as you get into the subjective emotional matter of cryptocurrency, how it's going to be, what it's going to be, it's not that. The question is what problem it solves. Can you switch on that light by doing function A and function B? And if that exists today, we would have had an answer to the people who are dumping it and going away from blockchain. So I think there is objective growth and also the education in the community required, and 2019 is going to bring that to the table. Because if blockchain was as a real thing, it would have gone 10 years ago. If it was a technology, it would have gone 10 years ago. If it was nothing, then no one would be talking about it. It is going to stay here. It's going to grow from this point, but it's going to grow very objectively. And people will respond to the objective functions and products to deliver. Right now, it's very subjective. Somebody bought a coin at $1, somebody threw an ICO out there. I personally believe ICO doesn't solve any problems. It's only a piggy bank to solve the problem. So ICOs is not solving the problem. Cryptocurrency is not you solving the problem. Currency is a function to solve that problem. So people need to start taking more objectively.
Can you ask the question again? I thought we were.
Oh, yeah. So, now we're talking about the next step. Now we were talking about regulations and moving overseas, the investors moving overseas. And now we're thinking, what's going to be next in 2019. Now we know that there's very legitimate ICOs that are out there, but we also know that there's regulations out there. We know that 2019 is going to bring something that's different because cryptocurrency is changing so fast. So we're talking about a little bit what you think now the future.
Well, for the future, what I'd like to see is a better understanding of our past and what made people get into Bitcoin in the first place. I see a lot of people coming into the space, and I wonder if they even understood what happened in the 2008 financial crisis. I hear a lot about regulation, and then I think about regulation that helped cause various crises. And I hear about we need to protect consumers, but then I remember, well, you know, we've got HSBC laundering tons and tons of money and getting a slap on the wrist. So when we're asking for regulation, this is the same institution that doesn't mete out justice equally. It's also an institution that is inherently violent. Large governments, because of the Federal Reserve, are able to wage much larger wars because they're not accountable to the people. So we can all talk about blockchain and all the efficiencies that it's going to bring in, but what I'd like to see is people maybe studying a little bit more about economics and getting a little bit more familiar with what may make these projects more sustainable in the long run, and also paying attention to what are the things that went right and wrong along the way. And, you know, I mean, I didn't get into blockchain in order to help the banking system become a more efficient beast. I came in because I wanted to have people in Africa be able to have the same access to financial services as I do. And so I think it's a little bit, you know, we're all moving forward on a business sense, but I think that there's a little bit of an ideological resurgence that I'd like to see. I'd like to see a lot less partisanship. I think there's a lot of labels coming into crypto, and you know, I respect people's differences, but crypto is supposed to be about equality, period, you know? So I'd like to see more of those values in the future as we grow.
I think in terms of the future, we've talked about how the market is going to, you know, be shifting and whatnot, but I think there are still multiple micro markets, you know, as you were saying, you got into blockchain and crypto to bring financial services to the underserved in emerging markets. And we're talking, when you talk about specifically in Africa, you know, that what's so incredible about some of these emerging economies, especially in Africa, are that they're jumping ones. You know, they didn't go and get landlines for phones and then get the cell phone upgrade. They went straight from no phone to cell phone, right? And so when we see that there's like from unbanked to crypto banked, that's the same leap. So I think that we're not necessarily, I don't think that the US is really the benchmark for progress in terms of consumption of these very new innovative technologies, mostly because we're not reliant on it. Yes, I hear you in your criticisms of the Federal Reserve and of the current banking system, but what we need to say find greater stability in a cryptocurrency. We don't live in that specific microeconomy right now in the same way that Zimbabwe does. And so when we see greater volatility in fiat markets, driving people into, you know, what we might consider more risky markets or risky currencies, I'm kind of excited to see what emerging markets are going to do to sway the entire conversation away from the US-dominated one.
Actually, no, sorry. Okay, so I started Yonder, right? Essentially because when I was in the VC world, I realized that a lot of people had technological problems, right? Getting an engineer in blockchain who actually understands it, you're looking at anywhere from like $150 an hour to $325 an hour, I mean, or more, right? Depends on the person, right? So in Nigeria. So I do most of my work in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, we're going into Tanzania and things like that. Nigeria recently, the Bank of Nigeria is trying to integrate blockchain, right? But what's really interesting is, you know, you talk about the political problems. So while cryptocurrency is going to be really, really great in the developing world, and it can basically ship this, and it will make merchants a lot better, right? So right now, I can't pay people in PayPal. PayPal is blocked in Nigeria. You cannot do that, right? It's because Nigeria has this background of being a scam. Like, you know, so many scammers, why would we trust them? PayPal's not allowed there, and then you have to go through, you know, Western Union, things like that. Like how, you know, archaic is that, right? Where blockchain can basically fix all of that. You know, we end up spending 10 times more money just doing the conversion to try to get it in their bank. But one of the things that we're having in terms of problems is just, you know, fighting back with the government, right? The Nigerian government is still very corrupt. A lot of African governments are very corrupt. Like, I could see it really changing, like, Colombia, Cote d'Ivoire,
see that, I mean, if you look at the evolution of blockchain, 2008, Satoshi came up with a paper, and he's talking about a blockchain, and he's talking about Bitcoin. There's two separate things. He came up with an immutable ledger, and he came up with a currency, a true digital currency. A lot of people tried that. Pre-Satoshi, it was a Byzantine, that was the closest one, and PayPal money was trying to solve that problem. When Satoshi published that paper, he hit the two birds with one stone. And it's basically going to be a decentralized currency adopted by the third world or the government, which are people who start adopting these currencies, which are more local, more decentralized, and more transparent than our decentralized. So there is a balance. Absolutely. That shift will start coming soon, and as you were saying, that's a must necessary thing for most part of the world, because none of us have authority to make the currency.
Yeah, and that's another thing to talk about between the developed and undeveloped world, and how blockchain is being applied. And because we just don't want to be US-centric, we're here in Brooklyn, and maybe I didn't mention that, we're here live in Brooklyn, we're in Williamsburg, at the WeWork here in Williamsburg. So, but we don't want to be focused just on the United States. So I want to talk a little bit more about the global aspects of blockchain and what it's doing.
So I'm going to ask you guys a question, right? We're all talking about blockchain and business, but then you've got a country like Saudi Arabia, right? Everybody's like, oh, the boogeyman. Not that our foreign policy is some big throw, but we all agree Saudi Arabia is really bad. What about when they start using blockchain? Or when China is now doing this social stuff? I mean, when you start talking about regulation, that's what I think about. I'm like, oh yeah, it starts out all simple, but then all of a sudden you've got Saudi coin, and now nobody's ever going to leave that system, period. It has great potential for good, but then it also has a lot of potential for bad. So when you think about who has the authority to print a coin, I'm not sure that I want them to have the authority, because they don't seem to be doing a very good job with that so far. Do you guys have any thoughts on potentially, harmful governance using blockchain? Can we stop there?
I think it's not more of printing the currency, it's more of adoption. People will adopt what they like and what they believe in. The government will try to enforce it, but that's not the ultimate end of it.
Is that like Venezuela?
Venezuela or Saudi, South will, a lot of countries will come out victorious, and a lot of currency will come out victorious out of this whole shape. And I'll go back to China and people who have early adopted cryptocurrency in the early stage. The reason is, if you look at 2009 and post-2009, post-recession, we have this big bubble started bursting in Europe. Portuguese, Greece, Italy, Spain, all the economies started going down. Same happened in China. China went through a big of a snag in 2014 and 13. So people, the rich Chinese people have decided. Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so most of the rich affluent Chinese communities started parking their money in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin shoot up in value with that, because they can move that money across the border and government can't reach it. So as soon as they know every person who can invest in the crypto, the government can't touch my money, can't touch my wealth, they want to go after that. I think that's the only solution.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just stick to this
Yeah, maybe just that one works. Okay, thank you. That's good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so basically, we want to talk about the aspects of international and what China's doing, what some of the other countries are doing. Now, there's a difference between the developing nations like the United States. We're not really using cryptocurrency in the same way as the undeveloped nations are. The undeveloped nations are using it, like you said, like Venezuela, they're replacing the currency. But over here in the United States, we're just using it for speculation, investments, and different types of aspects, and some are social good and different aspects like that. But what do you think with 2019 coming up and with the aspect, I'll go back to Monica, what do you think about the developing countries and what they're going to do with cryptocurrency as compared to the United States?
I think that we're pretty much in agreement that the adoption rate there is much higher for multiple market reasons, and in 2019 we're going to see a lot more actual applications and use cases coming out of blockchain itself and crypto coming with that. In terms of the speculative market, I'm really not that interested. This idea that crypto's in a free fall does not interest me. Yes, I bought. Yes, some of my investments have gone down, some have gone up. I didn't get involved in crypto to become some new speculator, and I never was a candlestick watcher, so I knew better than to try my hand at day trading. I know better than to try my hand at day trading in Apple and Amazon too. So I'm not really interested in talking about this as a speculative investment. If it is that for somebody, they are trying their hand at day trading, and may the best man win. I don't know a lot of people that have done a whole lot better than well-seasoned fund managers in any market. So rather than become that person who tries to learn every last tiny new development of this emerging currency that is the emerging economy that's happening so quickly, and the technologies that are driving it, I would rather just focus on the technology applications that I'm passionate about and what I see are the best use cases coming out of that vertical that are doing the best for social good for the planet. Whether it's a matter of pushing back on regulation, creating new opportunities for the individual investor, and for me, I think the real future of the economy is coming from the fact that we're going to have, with cryptocurrency and with blockchain applications, we're going to have more entry points to every market, every vertical for the individual investor. And when I think about capitalism as we could imagine it, we don't actually see it in its true state. We see it in a state that is really reflective of most of the wealth in the hands of very few people and very few players. So we don't even know what democracy, in terms of true participation on a global level or even a societal level, it looks like within the context of capitalism. We know what it looks like, and basically this holdover from the monarchy era. We know what it's like to see a few kings trading major assets and the rest of us scrambling for breadcrumbs. And as long as we keep the working class feeling, it's never from the middle class, and the middle class looking down at the working class, and it looks like everybody who's actually in the breadcrumb department is never going to look up and realize we'll never have a castle. And that is something that you can get upset about on an ethical or moral standpoint, but I put my activism hat away a while ago because I don't want to hold a sign up that someone already knows and expects me to hold while everyone's doing it. Yes, I'll add my body to the swell of people in a march. That is still important. I'm just a human being. But I think I can leverage a use case to help for greater entry points to a global marketplace that's truly going to see capitalism hopefully turned and used for more voices to be stewarding our assets and to be benefiting from the profits of them.
I have a question for Pam. How many of you believe that Bitcoin could go to zero, or Ethereum, all the cryptocurrencies can go to zero? They will start.
No, Bitcoin has value as worth to people, so it's not going to go to zero. But looking, what we were just talking about a little bit now, the schism between people who are looking at this for technology and people who are looking at it for the benefit of finance. I think one of the reasons why Bitcoin went down during this year was because the futures, the futures were allowed to come in on the Bitcoin futures. And once the Bitcoin futures and the speculators came in, that affected the price of Bitcoin and the speculation came in. But I really believe that, looking at Bitcoin and looking that it won't go down to zero because even all the speculators are trying to drive it down, but they won't be able to because there's value there and there's the technology behind the coins.
You had something? Okay. So, I think we can look at the rise of Bitcoin and the fall of Bitcoin with media, right? So, I remember last year, one of the analysts that worked at the fund was all day on YouTube with this speculator called, it was like Bitcoin Tom or something like that. It was like Bitcoin Jerry is, telling you the future of what you invest in. And he'd be like, oh, we have to do this. This is where we have to put our stuff. And I would see things rise and fall, and with the media, and when everyone got left. Yes, whenever he left his job and was focusing on Litecoin, how that raised it. And so, Bitcoin, in my opinion, can't drop to zero because the media has already been trying to tarnish it, right? So if it wanted to drop to zero, it would have dropped to zero. And for it to rise too, it's going to be very heavily not only in the technology, not only in kind of doing our due diligence internally, but also on the media, seeing the benefits and convincing them of the benefits. Because this currency is it shifts with what is what is currently trending on Twitter, or this person left a job and now he's going to really focus on the technology behind Litecoin or something like that. So it's a combination of looking at the media, trying to determine how we can produce the right media, and stopping speculators, right? Or Bitcoin Tom, who's saying don't invest here, do this, or a guy at JP Morgan who's oh, I know better, you should be investing here. It's just a bunch of competition in the market. It's a bunch of competing people saying that I know how to best, invest money. No one really knows. There's so much speculation.
So true.
So I have some economist friends, and I wish I could quote this accurately, but they've posited that no currency has ever gone down to zero, because even if it's not issued by its own country anymore, it remains something that you can use as like a memento or whatever. But when I think about Bitcoin going to zero, Bruce Fenton, I think, did a talk, and he said to everybody, if Bitcoin goes down, how many of you are going to hold it? And they were there was basically a sea full of people that said no matter what, they were going down with the ship. And that was the point, that Bitcoin will never go down because we have such people that believe in it. And just like with any currency, one day people may not believe in the US dollar, and it's all just a matter of faith. So I think that people will continue to believe in Bitcoin. Maybe Ethereum won't survive, maybe other ones won't. I feel good about Bitcoin specifically, but I think that we're dealing with something much bigger than just Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any single coin in the long term. The value is us even thinking what is money in the first place. People never even thought about that. And now people are looking in terms of things in almost an advanced barter. So it's definitely an evolution of thought.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not going to zero.
Well, I think we all agree on that particular part. There's a full intentions of government, media, and people who are anti-blockchain community. They want it to go to zero. I mean, it's spread of something. It's spread of currency, right? So there's 7 million people, 100 million adopted. It's just very little spread right now. As it starts growing, people will go say, I'm going down with shit. That's how it's going.
Thank you for that. I believe it's here to stay. That's for sure. We all know that. But we just have to figure out the technology and the approach and who's going to use it for good. Now, I know there's a lot of institutions want to get in there, they want to get their money, and they want to take everything out of it. But it didn't start that way, and I know there's a lot of people who are believers, and they believe in using the technology first, and then making profits later. The profits will come. So that was a very interesting chat. I think that's pretty good outlook for the status of Bitcoin and the status of what we're doing with ICOs. Maybe we can just finish off, because we didn't talk about STOs. So we'll just finish off from this point, and we'll go on to the next segment. What about STOs? Because ICOs were out there, they were looking at, the SEC was looking at ICOs, they weren't regulated, and you had to make sure that you're reporting, it's just like any raise, just like any Regulation D, any private placement, just any other type of raise. The SEC wants you to do the same thing, just to have the proper reporting to them, and then you can do your ICO. There's some regulations that have to go into that, a little bit more than that, but that's kind of the basics. So now from that evolution from the ICO, we got to the securitized token offering, the STO. So that made the institutions and the broker-dealers and made the fund administrators, the VCs, a little bit more comfortable with doing due diligence. So the STO is here. And what do you think about the STO? And what do you think it has, what's its place? And what do you think the future of it is?
So I think STOs, while they represent something tangible, which to an investor feels a lot better, it's not really great for innovation, which I'm sure you guys would agree with. When you put process onto anybody who's a visionary, that's usually bad. When you like overwhelm, like if you were to overwhelm Elon Musk with like process over and over, like he probably would not be trying to get to Mars, And I should see STOs as the new hype, right? I think ICOs are going to be something that carries us through because innovation forward is something that is something that we drive technology with. And the technology in ICOs and believing in a specific like entrepreneur and what they're doing, even though the technology may come 5 years later, 10 years down the line, believing in that value is something way more important. And the STOs is first off, there's not really many people other than just talking about it. It's a new thing to talk about, but not really creating plans to do it. There was a scooter company, right? That are trying to raise like 125. Did they raise it? Was it 125 million or something like that? Yeah, a scooter company. Yeah. Yeah, and I keep up with like the use cases of people talking about STOs, and it just doesn't seem like the same type of innovating that we were doing when we were talking about ICOs, or STOs versus ICOs.
Well, I see it's just an instrument or vehicle to get from point A to point B. STOs, fine. You want to call it STOs instead of ICOs, fine. You want to regulate, it's fine. The risks will remain the same. So anyone who is investing in whether STO or ICO or heavily backed and approved by SEC, SEC has no knowledge of how business gives them profit. SEC is in business to protect their investors. They're going to say, okay, this is the way someone should offer their tokens, coins, and anyone who is buying them, they have to do their own due diligence. So it's just a simple instrument and vehicle. Instead of shares, you get an STO, instead of something else, you get this, liquidity, you get that. But it doesn't have any real value in the process.
I feel like every 3 to 6 months there's a new name for the ICO and then they try and repackage it. I just don't care. I feel like it's going to change. People are going to do whatever they want. If people end up being too restricted here, they're going to go to other countries. When I hear about regulation getting involved, I just hear about walls being put up for the small guy, and I just don't understand why the small guy can give thousands of dollars to the lotto, can give over tens of thousands of dollars in Vegas, but when there's a business opportunity, all of a sudden they need all these protections. And I'm under the impression that I don't need a babysitter. And it's unfortunate when people lose money, but nobody showed up at their house and said, you better give me this money or else. They made that decision. Grow up, sucks you lost your money, make a better investment next time. And I think that that's a better way to teach people in the first place. It's a hard lesson, but tough luck. Because you're going to lose a lot of other opportunities, because then you're going to get into nanny state, and then you're not going to have any other options. And also, incidentally, like the industry itself can respond more quickly to some of the pressures. It's not a good look for the industry when people get ripped off. So we have an impetus an incentive to mitigate those problems internally. I think that we would do a better job.
I agree with you. I think this whole STO repackaging, I understand there is somewhat of a true difference in ICO as it was envisioned even 10 months ago, and what an STO is now regulated to be. I get that, but I also just don't care. I really don't. At this point, you have a conversation with a retail investor. You want to use ICO, you go overseas. You have to talk to them. You have to translate all of your stuff into their language, and you have to hope that they give you their money. If you want to talk to a VC, you have to speak their language, you gotta show them your cap table, you have to make them feel pretty, and you have to date them and show a little shoulder without seeming eager, like you're actually just asking for money. You have an idea and you're asking for money. Whatever conversation you want to throw a coin into that you, fine. You think that you can speak that language? It's like you're gonna speak Russian and French at the same time. Like fine, feel free, but you're just asking for money. However you think that's gonna work for you, go for it. I hope you have a great idea and you stop scamming people because it makes the rest of us look so bad.
It's always just the basics.
Yeah.
Strong team and good plan, and good technology. Doesn't matter what you call it. I understand.
I feel like investors community need to grow up here as well. I mean, if you look at it, the fundamental plateau of them investing is they are getting an opportunity in something which they can go and grow their and treat the entrepreneurs more respectfully, and they don't have to speak French and Russian at the same time. Just grow up with the technology, understand what he's really trying to do. If it makes sense to you, go for it. Hovering around the circle, not getting his money is basically going to be 10 times, and that's the only reason he's interested in that idea, that founder, and that company. Otherwise, there is no other reason. Risks are everywhere.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So now we're going to change a little bit of a tack now, and what we're going to do for the next segment, finish up, we're going to talk about the media, blockchain, and the aspects of how blockchain and entertainment and media. There's a lot of streaming. There's Netflix. There's blockchain where you can buy movies on the internet. The technology is coming and it's merging. So I want to. I'm not a person that has a lot of knowledge in entertainment and media. That's why I'm bringing the experts on and people who are panelists. But I think a lot of people out there want to know and want to really, because people are looking at entertainment all the time, and people are watching streaming all the time, and people think that Netflix is the be-all and end-all, and that there's nothing else out there. But I've been hearing that there's blockchain is affecting everything, including streaming and media. So I wanted to get some of your opinions on that.
So I'm going to start with not Netflix, but a different type of media, journalism, right? So everyone is, kept up with the Kasagi.
Of course.
What has happened, because what has happened, and that was absolutely terrible. And so, Forbes has been integrating blockchain to essentially protect its writers. And I think that we're going to see that happen more often, especially with they're going to be, blockchain is anonymous, so essentially if you're a hard cutting reporter, you're revealing something about like the Saudi royal family and you don't want to be tracked back in any sort of way, it could, essentially protect the writer. And I think that that's going to really be a conversation that we're going to be having, especially after what has happened in the past month with Saudi Arabia. Because of, protection for writers going down. And we really need to, create anonymity and create a place that people can feel free to share what they want to share and not be tracked back and hopefully not be, murdered for their opinions. That's where I see blockchain actually really hitting the media hard. It's just protection, and I'm sure that you'll go into protection for artists just in general, right, in terms of royalties, because that's a really great way as well. But, I see it as a really good way of protection for writers who have something very, very important to say that, could essentially go back on them very negatively.
Very interesting point you raised here. I think anonymity would be one of the factors. I have a small take on media and arts, and I think the production companies doesn't do the justice to the best-selling media and content out there, and that will change with blockchain. So let's say you produce a TV show, or you produce a podcast or something, you don't have a data how many people actually listen to it in real life. Those numbers can be easily manipulated, and all your royalties or all your money is based on when this content was generated and how many times it's been seen. So if that gets placed on the blockchain as soon as it's been generated, so you have a copy which is or audit ledger, which is recording every single move of that particular content. That's where I think blockchain will play a huge role. Netflix will start paying more money to people who really create amazing content. Otherwise, they're going to go and just publish it on their own because they don't need anyone.
I think the idea of fake news is really hilarious because I was in 2008. I was a big supporter of Ron Paul. Whether or not you like Ron Paul, it's irrelevant. Ron Paul had 4,000 or 5,000 people at different rallies, from the left, from the right, holding hands. And when you heard it reported in the news, like a couple hundred people showed up for some guy, and this is the reporting. Now you've got Trump, who's saying fake news, which is entertaining because on the one hand, he starts out saying WikiLeaks, and I'm down with WikiLeaks. Fake news is a real thing. But now it's almost become something that the state is using to label questioning of the state. So the line between propaganda and then the propaganda of different activist groups that are sort of, you know, motivated. I mean, Antifa has their own line of things and they're kind of acting kind of fascist. You've got some people on the right and they're a little bit out of whack. So what constitutes fake news is sort of an interesting time. And when you have people able to post anonymously, that's great. But then how do you know what their qualifications are, what their motivations are? You know, when you think about the deep web, people talk about all the bad things that go on the deep web. But what also happens on the deep web is you have a lot of political dissidents. And they're known as terrorists and bad people, but are they? It depends on, you know, the viewpoint. So blockchain interacting there is really, really interesting. And I've taken a lot of my music over the time to actually talk about that. So I have a song called Make a YouTube Video that I made because people would argue, and now you've got YouTube, now you can make a YouTube video and prove your point, and I think that that's really exciting. And when you talk about like television programming, music programming, they're not kidding. It is a program, right? And that's kind of why I wanted to innovate with Tatiana Coin. So just to give the audience a little bit of background, as a political-ish artist, there's not really a place for me. You know, when I was little, I used to listen to Cat Stevens and you know, Simon and Garfunkel and all these 60s and 70s songwriters, and I heard Peace Train, and I thought to myself, you could use music to convey an idea. And we all saw what happened in the 60s and 70s. There were revolutions in this country that rippled out throughout the world. And now we've been at war for over 17 years, and you don't hear a single song on the radio that's anti-war. So it's ridiculous. It's not like all the artists were thinking, oh, this is great, let's go kill some babies. I mean, there's obviously an incentive problem. So I think of Tatiana Coin and artist coins and people's ability to connect with the blockchain and the arts as a way of enabling free expression and also connecting with your fans in a long-term basis. So maybe I don't have somebody at a record label that says, oh yeah, we want to hear all about how the government should stop bombing people. Because, you know, they've got their buddies at some sort of big industry company, whatever, Martin. So, you know, that incentive isn't there, but it's not important anymore. And it's also not important if 50 million people agree with me. I just want to be able to connect with my people, and then I can grow from there and have a sustainable career. So that's what I think is really important in terms of the arts and blockchain, meaning is just empowering people to speak freely. Because if you work in a regular job, you can't be critical, and that's important.
I couldn't agree more. I like what you said, basically. I don't need 50 million people to agree with me. I need to just meet with my people. And so, I mean, what are we doing right now? We're creating media to disseminate it, to meet with our people and see who else wants to resonate with this. We're going to be looking at how many likes it gets, how many shares. And it's funny because I was recently on a panel about art and blockchain, but it was from a visual art perspective, which is a background that I'm much more closely aligned with, simply because I was a visual artist for 20 years. I ran an artist residency that focused on visual art and writing, which is object related, especially visual art specifically. And in that, not to digress too far, but in that specific art meets blockchain conversation, we were discussing the object and how to disseminate it differently through digitization, through digital limited edition, through creation of value around engagement of creation, and then how do you make access to it and let the value of it be shared, but also the enjoyment of it be tracked, and and still, return back to the person who created it, and how do you foster this economy? But I had just listened to this wonderful first episode of, I think, 22 episodes. They're now on SoundCloud by Mike Daisy. He's a monologuist based here in Brooklyn. I cannot sing his praises enough. He makes Spalding Gray look like an amateur, and I like Spalding Gray. But anyway, he just closed out his second run of People's History of the United States. And part of wanting to get more feedback on this series, this 22-night series, each night being a 1 to 2 hour long piece, starting with 1492 and working up to current day, working through Howard Zinn's People's History of the U.S. and talking and giving out stories around a certain specific genre. Fascinating and brilliant and entertaining, I cannot plug it enough. But in that first episode, he discusses the clash of cultures and the things that happened in 1492 when this country was essentially invaded by Europeans. And the way that there was a stored value and understanding of capitalism by the Europeans, and the way that the Native Americans, the Iroquois specifically, which were some of the first people to engage them, how they didn't have a stored value in the same way. So for example, there was no poverty. There was no inequality. There was plenty of sharing. There wasn't the written word. So we don't really have a lot of documentation of this other way of doing things. But it made me start thinking about how we're now making microeconomies. We're envisioning capitalism, and we might just be doing the same old thing, we might not, especially in light of the utility coin versus the security coin. So I'm a big fan of securitization. I'm securitizing real estate. I think there's a lot of use for it. But let's look at what securitizing a piece of art does. It gives you a piece of a thing where you might have a store of value and get some sort of dividend. What about a utility coin? As we already see, essentially, with, say, the number of likes. So in one, the security sense, it's only valuable if there's a scarcity model around it. It's because we can't have an unlimited edition of digital prints, then it doesn't have any value. But as a utility model, it's only valuable if it goes viral. So in a sense, it only works if we're all consuming it. If we meet with our people and we grow from there, we have more value. What does that say? It turns the securitizing on its head, and it brings forth the utility model. I think about this in terms of how medical care is treated. My friend is Australian, and he has the most amazing medical care. Even living over here, I keep threatening, he's gay as the day is long, I keep threatening to marry him for his health insurance. Because it's incredible. He recently cut his finger, he went to the hospital, like, oh, you're Australian, you have this specialty, it'll be $10. It was amazing, right? And I tell him how much I pay every month for a private policy because I'm an entrepreneur, and he just can't believe I can even afford to feed myself, which is, I love that he has a little faith in me. But nonetheless, his healthcare is based on a utility model. Mine's based on a security model. There's a scarcity, and I have to pay a premium to get any tiny piece of. And his is a utility that he pays basically nothing for, and it's just as functional, if not more so. So I think there's something very interesting, especially in the arts, and when you come to streaming, that to look at things through a utility sense in this microeconomy where there's value created by meeting your people and growing. That's a utility model. You can't securitize that and create scarcity. You have to instead be looking at it through an abundance model, and not to get all Tony Robbins about it, but I think capitalism is in for a really big overhaul if we do this right and if we continue to innovate in a truly leapfrogging way. So again, that's why I like looking at emerging markets, because they have the greatest appetite for new emerging economies.
Fantastic, thank you very much. That was a great point. Because a lot of people, and like you're talking about, everybody's talking about securitized coins. Nobody's talking about the utility coin. Everybody tries to take the utility coin and see if they can twist it back into a security coin, even if it's not. So I know where you're coming from, and right, and that's what we're talking about in the beginning. About talking about what is the value, because it's not just money. It's not just financial. There's technology and there's usefulness in blockchain, and that is not tangible, and you just can't count it in coins. You just don't want to have everything as a coin. There's usefulness to that, but not in every sense. And then that's why we're talking about media now, and how the aspects of having entertainment and different type of aspects, and that was very interesting what you're talking about also. And like you said, that has nothing to do with the coin. That's protecting a human life. That is something that can be put on and spread out to other journalists. That would be fantastic. I didn't hear about that. That was something. Well, that's why we want to have these talks, because we want to teach and educate people on different aspects. And looking at the media and looking at the future, we want to see how blockchain is going to take music and media and try to transform it. So, if there's any more opinions on that, I'd like to hear some more.
My final thoughts are, blockchain is for the people, by the people, right? So any aspect of it that goes back to just helping human lives, I think is something that is going to be innately valuable in not first world, second world, third, but everywhere in the world. Because it comes back to essentially people saying, this is how we want it to go, this is how we want to see the world moving forward. And so, in talking about, should I make an investment, what is 2019 going to bring, should we securitize this, should we do this, it comes back to the question of, is it helping people? And I think blockchain is really helping people. Technology itself is really going to create, such a whirlwind effect in innovation. And so, a lot of VCs already, fund managers, they invest with their heart. They invest in something they're passionate about. Yes, it's based on the team, maybe, quick pump and dump. They're trying to get it to, be acquired, things like that. But it comes back to start investing with your heart. Know that you can, trust this team. You know that they're doing something for the betterment of the greater good, and that will be what drives Bitcoin and blockchain itself. It's because innately, at the end of the day, it is, like I said, for the people, by the people. We're determining how the economy will work.
Absolutely, final thoughts: for the people, by the people, governed by code. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What's the question?
Well, just to finish up your opinion.
My final thoughts, I'm excited to see what's going to end up happening with the crypto space. I encourage everything to be voluntary, and may the best coin win.
I did what she said, for sure. I guess my final thoughts are, I think that it's an exciting time to be in blockchain and this technology, but also in crypto. And I know a lot of people that sort of think they lean one way or the other, and I don't agree. I think that the two do go hand in hand, because we have a new era of the internet of value, and it's really exciting. So yeah, it's just looking at new projects that are actually out to help people, how they're helping people, just having those conversations around what is social impact, or are you just trying to hop onto the coattails of the next fad? I think that this kind of self-governance and self-reflection is necessary if we're going to do this right.
I might start Jamal Khashoggi coin.
Yeah.
Better be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most likely. I mean, it's tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was something where we just we want to make sure that we don't forget what happened to him. That's for sure. Yes.
All right, but if we're going to start calling out that guy, what about Latifah? You know what I mean? Everybody, for example, in Dubai, the Prime Minister, what do you call it, the head guy of Dubai, he apparently murdered his daughter, Free Latifah, if people could look it up. I mean, it gets a little bit crazy, because this is actually a much larger problem than just that one reporter. I mean, look, the US is trying to get free speech, the only country in the world that has free speech codified. The US is trying to get Assange back, and then what are we going to do with him? Put the head on the spike. So, I don't know. We got bigger problems than just Khashoggi.
We should add Edward Snowden.
Yeah, Snowden coin, we got them all.
Well, that's another whole topic for social impact. That's another topic we can talk about next time. Social impact. That's another very where there's a lot of projects in social impact. Just to finish off, maybe we can just finish off, and we were talking about blockchain. We talked about a lot of different things and a lot of different aspects. And thank you all for attending. And it was very educational and very enlightening. And thank you very, very much. But just to finish off, what do you think about the different aspects when we were going back, I just want to talk a little bit about going back about projects. And what do you think about the quality of projects? What do you see? Because we're talking about projects and the quality, but and there's a lot of projects out there. What do you, just to finish off, when you look at a project and you see something and you look at a project, what makes you say that it's going to make it or it's not going to make it?
So for me, having like a more like tech background, I think is tech scalable? And can you actually get the manpower to create the tech so you don't hit into like a Theranos issue, right? And so whenever I'm looking to determine if something is of value or not, it's, simply can we scale the tech? If, we do raise $125 million and we do hire the best engineers, can we actually make a product? And then coming back to the team, the starting team. So you have a great starting team. Can that starting team actually go out and get the manpower to make something happen? And I think it's you have to think about, investing in an ICO, like, who is the starting team? If we do invest in this and give, tons of hundreds of millions of dollars, can they scale that? But it's like anything else, even small investments of like 50K on Shark Tank, they're looking like, how can we scale this, and those people are facing the same issues that people are facing when they raise $125 million, and technology is hard. Finding good engineers is really, really hard. And people that really understand the space are very, very limited. So, as we improve education, I feel like a lot of these scaling issues will diminish a little bit because, more engineers will be inclined to be doing this so we can actually scale the right projects.
I guess you can finish up with what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Everyone can finish up with what they're doing right now.
Yeah, so I personally saw a lot of entrepreneurs not fail, but get stuck in this regard of scaling in terms of how engineers are just incredibly expensive. And a lot of people, they get out of college and then, they expect like 115K starting salary, plus equity, plus this, plus that, as a front-end dev, back-end dev, full stack. Full stack is like, 150, don't even talk to me, if it's less than that. And so, basically the work I started doing with Ianu is to go to Nigeria, who has amazing talent and amazing people who have not gotten the opportunity to join the global market and give them essentially that opportunity to join the global market and to be a part of what's going on in blockchain engineering. And because they're going to be more affordable, they might actually have the ability to change the market to allow more people to go in because they can scale up faster due to the cost. And not only in blockchain, but in different other industries, because definitely startups face that problem of scaling up and getting really, really good talent to actually make their valuation worth it.
Oh boy, so many projects, right? I see so many of them. I think we have to change the mentality of rewarding success as high as it looks like and punishing the failure. My personal thought, I would bet on jockeys, not horses. More than idea, you need a solid team to pull it through. Scalability, whether it's anything else, bad PR, something went wrong, tech issues, you need a good team who knows how to pivot, experienced people who know what are the results of their actions. Those are the projects they're going to sustain, they'll go through it. It's not you raise 100 million, do you really need 100 million to do what? My first question, somebody saying, this company is going to be worth 100 million, I'm like, why it has to be worth 100 million? It can be just simple lifestyle business. It can be something like this. So projects will take off based on the founders and the job. We build the world's fastest settlement engine for the payment transactions. It's scalable, and we are implementing right now in travel industry. Let's say 4 of us, 5 of us, everybody in the audience, we have a smart contract, and party A, B, C, D supposed to receive the payment upon the transaction at a particular value and time. My company, WeTravelX, Zenia, takes care of the settlement process seamlessly and instantly. That's what we feel, and it's not non-existent right now anywhere else.
That's great.
Well, I'm excited to see where the tech is going to take us. But while that's going on, I mean, for me, I want to focus on telling the stories of the community. I've never thought I would end up in finance or technology, but I certainly have a lot of inspiration in this space, especially musically, which is totally bizarre. But I mean, crypto is very rock and roll. It's a decentralized world, and for me, I think I just want to see people remembering why we got into this and not getting too carried away with the price or how rich we're going to be or our Lambos. And then on a personal level, if people want to connect with me, they can go to thetatianashow.com, they can follow my music at tatianamorose.com, or check in with me at cryptomediahub.com and connect there. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I'm very excited for where the tech is going to take us, absolutely. I don't, as I said before, I don't really care that the crypto markets are depressed or correcting right now, and it doesn't bother me in the least. In fact, it's great to see it get healthier. It's sort of like a little wildfire comes through, and you know, it's making the soil healthier for later. So I'm fine with that. I'm in it for the long haul. And as far as projects, I'm very interested in how we're determining what is social impact and what is helping all the people, or even helping some of the people. Is it an opportunity, or is it, you know, just a price competition that you're winning? I mean, those conversations are good ones to be having, especially as we build more tech that's supposed to be and is of the people and by the people and about the people to reward the people. So yeah, I'm excited to see hopefully a global economy start to reflect a global citizenry. And to find out more about me, you can connect with me through my book, Blockchain 101. So I have blockchain101book.com. It just redirects to my site because my name is spelled so weird, Monica Profits, just you'll never guess. And risehousing.io is the other place you can connect with me. So on social or anything else, you can find me at Monica Profit. Again, good luck spelling that. So Blockchain 101 Book's the easiest place. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Great, we'd like to thank you all for this great fireside chat. It's the first of many that we're going to be doing fireside chats here. We'll be doing some fireside chats in New York and Los Angeles. So we want to thank everyone here in great Williamsburg. It was very welcoming here at WeWork. And we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.